Good morning, everybody. Got a good crowd this morning. We'll start the June 3rd Ellis County Commission meeting. If everybody capable, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bobby, could do the roll call.
Commissioner Neil Younger.
Present.
Chair Michael Burgess.
Here.
Commissioner Nathan Liker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Order of business, any changes or amendments to the order? And we will have 2 executive sessions after our formal meeting. Prior minutes, any changes or acknowledgements in there?
Minutes look good.
Look good? Look good. Good on my part. Consent agenda. Questions?
No, I have none.
Okay.
I will move to approve consent agenda items A through G.
I will second that.
We got a motion and a second on the table. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Issues from persons not on the order agenda. Anybody on the public want to speak to the commission? Okay. First item on the agenda, introduction of new employees, Ms. Jennifer Taylor, HR.
Good morning, Jennifer
Good
Taylor,
morning.
Ellis County HR, and I have 4 employees that are all full-time, and they started within the last month, and I believe all of their supervisors are here to introduce them, so we do welcome them and looking forward to working with them.
Morning, Commissioners. Brendan McKay,
Morning.
Ellis County Public
Morning.
Works Director.
Morning.
So beside me here is Sean Keeber. He's our newest truck driver for out there. We're happy to have him.
Welcome
Thank
aboard.
Welcome.
aboard.
Morning, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Gary Haas, Weed Control Supervisor. I'm here today with Mark Liker. He started last Tuesday as a Spray Tech 1.
Okay.
Glad to have him.
Very
Welcome.
good. Welcome, Mark.
Good morning, Danita Schrader,
Morning.
EMS Director. I have Thane Cox with us. He's an EMT. He came to us from the Liberal Hugoton area where he worked down there, and he started for us at the end of last month.
Very good. Welcome.
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 Good morning,
Good morning.
Commissioners.
Good
Dustin
morning.
Barnes, Sheriff's Office. I have Crystal Broomgart. She's joined us in the jail as a Detention Officer 1. She's been with us for a couple weeks, doing good. We're glad to have her on board.
Okay.
Very good.
Welcome aboard.
Crystal.
Welcome.
Very good. Next on the agenda, DSW KidLink Access Transportation 2026 Budget Request. Mr. Jerry Michaud.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jerry Michaud, Developmental Services, Northwest Kansas.
Morning.
Nice to be with y'all this morning. I see a little rain out there. Lots to present this morning. We'll try to do these 3 parts, just kind of in succession. So holler out any questions if you have any. Definitely appreciate the chance to come before you and express our gratitude for the support of the county. We're a 501c3 organization. I think all know that. Our lion's share of our services are right here in Ellis County, where we serve on the items on the agenda. You'll see the report that's titled Ellis County Commission Report 2024. That's the reporting period for which we're working the calendar year 24. There are 173 FTE people. We serve some folks part-time, so they're in that mix, but that's the conversion. The 188 is the actual count. The cost of services, you can see those listed on the mid part of that page. 6.635 million. The amount of federal funds and state funds that we receive to do those are primarily Medicaid, HCBS, Home and Community-Based Services, waiver dollars primarily. And there's a shortfall of about 400, almost 417 $250,000. The county mill that we have received is $250,000. We're asking for if you can hold the line on that, that would be great. The gap exists for sure. Anything you could do to shorten up that gap is appreciated, but we definitely appreciate the support. The next piece of our report is the economic benefit. I think it's just an important aspect as we look at these things as a community, as a county, really as a region. You'll see this economic benefit for 2024 was $9.8 million. There's a lot of staff that we have, 227. That adds up to a lot. Most of what we do is people serving people, and so that's the bulk of those expenditures. You can see the rest that goes down through there. The 5-year average, or not average, the 5-year impact is well over 40, almost 42 million over 5 years. That's a significant impact. Glad to share that value. The last sheet in this packet is our impact sheet, and it gives a snapshot of who's where in our region. We serve the 18 counties. Ellis County is, again, the core where our administrative offices and the bulk of our staff and persons served are receiving services. Just a few other facts that I wanted to share with you. Lots and lots of changes undergoing in our system. And I'm sure we'll probably be discussing more as time goes on about those and compliance with CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. I've been working through some processes with the state on that. But we continue to have to battle some of the same things with workforce. It continues to be an issue. The values in our request include nothing in terms of cost of living or adjustments for inflation. It's just straight numbers, okay? Our turnover rate in February was just 38.4%. In our industry, it's a little lower than the industry average across the nation. But we have 27 open positions across our region. 12 of those are right here in Ellis County. So we continue to work hard to try to fill those. But I think everyone knows that reality it's just a tough reality. And then the last little bit I wanted to share was an update on our waiting list. In the state of Kansas, 4,300 people approximately are waiting for services, and their wait time continues to be about 10 years. They've made some progress over the last year. This last legislative session, we're bringing 200 additional people off the list. But you can imagine how that compounds the workforce challenge, because you need people to serve people. So that continues to be our task, our challenge, and we're up to it, and we'll continue to work on that. So that's a quick run through on the DSNWK service provision side of things. If there are any questions, I could answer them now, or we could shift to the next piece of the presentation, which would be on our KidLink service.
I have none, Jerry.
On the unmet need, so the 166 or 167,000, is that just the unmet need for Ellis County, or is that the unmet need for all the region?
No, that would just be,
for
that's
Ellis
just
County.
Ellis County.
Okay. Does that include the request that goes to the city again? Or is this, again, just specific to Ellis County?
Yeah, this is just Ellis County numbers. We definitely have a request, and we'll talk a little bit more when we get to the transportation aspect
okay.
on that, so. Okay, in the interest
I
of
have
time.
no further questions.
Okay, I'll step aside and let Sarah Biggs.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm
Morning,
Sarah
Sarah.
Biggs, Director of Programs and Services at DSNWK, and KidLink is one of my service branches that I get to work with. So we are requesting the $120,000, consistent with last year. On page 2 of my report, you can see the numbers of children served in Ellis County. So January through March, we did have 19 referrals, and 29 children were being served in that quarter. which is pretty consistent from quarter to quarter in Ellis County. There's a breakdown of all the different costs and things that this helps to cover and support with families. I think you guys are familiar with what KidLink does, so I won't go into that again this year. I did note when we put this together, we didn't have some of our final numbers, but we do have it on the very back page, so you can see the breakdown of how we are funded within KidLink with our Part C Medicaid, CAT aid, Ellis County Support, United Way State Aid, and miscellaneous grants and donations. I know that was very short, but do you guys have any questions?
Are you anticipating any changes in services this year if maintained?
Yeah, we're just continuing to keep up with our, the regs and stuff. We have had some staffing issues as well. Luckily in Ellis County, we're fully staffed on the KidLink side, but we do have some of our other areas, obviously serving seven counties with our early childhood services. We're down a speech SLP and also a case manager FSC position. So we will have to stretch that out. Our manager, Tammy, does an amazing job kind of hubbing then in the areas of need, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do a little tag team here. Wade, I'm going to give an overview of the access.
My name is Wade Cruz. I'm Transportation Manager for Access at
Morning, Wade.
DSWBK.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Last year, Access, and if you look on page 4, we actually told you folks that we did 35,000 rides. Those numbers were actually incorrect. We did just over 28,000 rides last year for the calendar year. So I want to make that clarification so you guys know that it's on page 4, just to clarify that, yeah, we've only done 28. We haven't done over 30,000 rides since COVID hit. The cost of everything in Access is going up. I think the last time I came to you folks, I told you that our buses have gone up from $80,000 8 years ago to almost $160,000 a piece now. They've almost doubled. And if we do all the upgrades that we really want to do, then they'll cost you $190,000 a piece. Unfortunately, KDOT has been cutting the funds for public transportation across the state of Kansas of all 146 agencies across the state of Kansas. The reason behind that is because the cost of everything has gone up. The state of Kansas only provides public transportation $3 million a year. That is what has been in the budget for many years, and they don't foresee that ever going up. The FTA, who gives the money to KDOT Transportation, has not upped up anything either. So when you have more money being asked, the less money you're going to get. We have to go to our local entities and ask for more money for a local match. Unfortunately, that's what we're going to be doing today when Jerry talks to you here in a second. Just the expenses of running this is getting outrageous. Last year alone in the state of Kansas, there was almost, I think, 13, 14 agencies that actually closed their doors early. And the fiscal year for calendar for KDOT is July 1 to end of June. So when you got agencies in the state of Kansas closing in February because they run out of money, that's pretty sad. I mean, it's a sad deal for the public because they're not getting those rides they need, especially when you need to go to medical appointments and there's nothing to take you. So I'm going to turn it over to Jerry and let him talk to you real quick about the finance part of it, and then I'll come back and answer your questions if you have.
So I think Wade kind of hit the high points. We as an organization have kind of taken on this oversight and operations of the public transportation, but truly it is a service to the public. The individuals we serve certainly benefit from it, being a paratransit and accessible types of transportation, so that's great. Our request prior was $50,000 of support, and it's a combination between Ellis County and the city of Hayes in terms of the local support that we need to kind of make this operation continue to work. As we have moved through the last couple of years, you see in the packet a couple of prior years of the income statement, and what we've had the latitude with some COVID-related transportation dollars have helped us to fill the gap that KDOT has not been funding. And so we've been filling that over the last couple of years. But as we look at 2026, those resources just are no longer there to access, to fill the gap, which is why we're coming before the commission. And I know our point and our goal was not to look at increases, but we're at a point where we're about 172,000 in a difference between what it takes to operate the service and what we have. We are also on the agenda for the city of Hayes. The county funds the local portion about 38%, and so that value was I had it right in front of me here just a second ago. About 65,000 additional for the county as that 38% of the gap. We are asking the city for the balance of the other percentage, and we're on the agenda for them on this Thursday. So it's really being in a rock and a hard place. Our goal is to provide the service as best that we are able. We do it as efficient as we can, but yet the values are the values. We've looked at some scenarios. What if we raised fares? What if we, change things operationally? KDOT, sorry, we get the organizations muddled together pretty easily. The Department of Transportation, they fund our operations part, they just don't fund the other aspects. And that presents a real challenge, because you need the oversight and all the backside of the operations to still be in place. It doesn't operate itself, which puts us in that kind of a difficult place. So wanted to get that to you ahead of time for your consideration. Anything that you can do that will help us, helps us to be able to manage.
Do those buses just run here locally in the county, or do those spread out throughout the other counties under the DSNWK?
No, Access only provides rides inside of Ellis County. We don't go across county lines.
Okay,
So it's strictly just Ellis.
it's strictly.
And that's on the general public transportation. We operate a KDOT transportation service that serves individuals specifically with disabilities. But that's a different,
The funds we're asking for the 5311 program, which
Okay.
is public transportation.
yes.
Okay,
But it does serve Ellis County as far as Ellis, Victoria, if there's
Yes, we
rides
go
needed.
to all the cities.
Shin-
If you
Shin-
book a ride out in the country, anywhere inside of Ellis County, we'll go pick you up. We go there, Ellis County runs on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So if they call me in and say, hey, we need a ride, and you live in Shin, we'll make that arrangement to go down and pick that person up and bring them in. We only charge $5 for county rides, one way. I can't raise those rates due to KDOT's restrictions. I am one of the highest in the state of Kansas. And actually, when I did raise the rates here several years back, I got my hand slapped by KDOT because I didn't get their approval before I did it. So unfortunately, they let me slide on it, but yeah, I can't raise the rates to offset the balance of not getting enough money, so unfortunately, so.
so,
Is that, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Question for you. You mentioned other facilities have shuttered or closed down in February. What do you see as the future on this?
I wish I knew. I mean, since I've been here in the 8 years with the funding going up as high as the people that are asking for and not getting any more money from the FDA, I don't know what the future is going to hold. I mean, I wish I could tell you, unfortunately, but I hate to see the public suffering because of this, because we do provide a great service for the residents of Ellis County. And like I said, there's other agencies across the state of Kansas that lost a lot more money than we did. And unfortunately, I mean, they're from bigger organizations, but they can get it from their local supports. But unfortunately, yes, I don't know the answer to that one. I hope it gets better, but only time will tell.
Okay.
The majority of folks that ride Access are low income, folks that need accessible transportation. They can't call Uber or, Lyft or whatever, if they have those types of unique needs. And so the service is certainly a needed thing. As an organization, our mission at Developmental Services is certainly to cooperate and help support in every way we can, but we can't pull from our own operations in serving people with disabilities to supplant those dollars into a public transportation. So our goal is to work and find a path. We haven't even began to talk about what federal types of changes that might be on the horizon. We're all trying to read the crystal ball on that one, so.
So do you see yourself going to KDOT and possibly asking for, you know?
Actually, I can answer that for you. I also sit on the board for KPTA, which is the Kansas
Okay.
Public Transportation Association. Our director has met with the legislators in the state capitol about getting more money because it's been the same amount of money for years. So we're trying to ask the state for more money. Unfortunately, that's been falling on deaf ears because they just approved the budget here not too long ago, and they said they're only gonna give us another $3 million. We're wanting to up that up to $12 million a year to help offset the cost because it needs to be changed, but yeah, it's getting more and more expensive to operate the system. So yes, we are working with KDOT to get more funds from the
And
state
I
level and
guess
from the FTA level.
The last thing we want to do is raise, you know, from $5 to $10. We'll put ourselves, we won't be able to have that service anymore, and I really don't want
No,
to
you
see
won't.
that.
No.
Not at
So
all.
unfortunately, and there's people that call that ask me all the time for free rides because they can't afford it, even a $3 ride or a $5 ride. It's, you know, it's just something we have to do, so unfortunately.
Curious with the, you know, the unfortunate of programs closing, but that 3 million or whatever it is, does that get redistributed back to the other programs in any way, or?
The $3 million that KDOT gets from the state of Kansas is divided out between those 146 agencies. So when you got 146 agencies in the 5311 program all across the state, it goes quick.
Yeah, it's probably a difficult question to answer. If one closes, do they take their designated funds and pass it out into
Yeah, no.
into the system?
When I say they close, they run out of local fund and state of Kansas funds. So they don't have any funds from either the state level or the local level when they close their doors.
So they go into a hiatus.
Yeah, they go on a hiatus.
They pause their service.
Okay.
which
Till July
I
1
don't-
and then they reopen.
Yeah, I
Okay,
don't know how
okay.
that works.
Yeah,
how
sorry.
that works.
I know that was, so yeah, but it's just the smaller agencies, like your mom and pop, the really small ones only do like maybe 6,000 or 7,000 rides, maybe 15,000 rides,
Yeah.
if that. So hopefully last year, yeah, we saw those numbers, but hopefully this year we won't have to, but
So if they close in February, but then when the new fiscal year starts in July, they can
They
start
start
up
back
with-
up,
for
yeah.
a time being until those funds run out, and then
Yes.
they, okay.
yes, that's how
Okay.
it works.
So stock up on groceries in January.
Okay.
Commissioners, thank you so much for all your support. We kind of ran through a lot and probably ran over our time, so.
No, you're fine. Thank you for coming in
Thank you.
and
You
putting
have a
in
good
a budget request to us as we're getting, we'll talk a little more about budget at the end of this meeting, but we are in our process, as you know. So we appreciate the information so we can digest it, consider it, and do our best for you.
All right, thanks.
I do want to say one thing to thank
Yes.
you guys and your staff. This was on my list to report for commission report, but at the Custom Creations, plus you guys are doing raffle. You guys aren't sitting on your hands. You're trying to help us in Ellis County and the community in a big way. So thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Good morning.
David Klingen, Grow Hayes Director. I'm here this morning to talk to you. What's wrong, Mike?
I didn't recognize you to come on up.
Do what?
You just assume we're going right into it, huh?
What popped up? And I know your time is precious, so I want to keep
Okay.
rolling here.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Commissioner. Today, I was talking to you about the resolution that's on your desk for an RHID district being created in Big Creek Estates. Adam Prey, who works with Platinum Group, proposes the construction of 13 new homes in the Big Creek Estates subdivision. With the success of this project intended, I think we would see increased housing inventory, support in growing our families, and also attract new residents to Ellis County. Back in April 2025, Dominic Eck with Gilmore Bell had come to this commission and just talked about what RHID stood for, what it does, and how it helps with the developer and the expenses. It is a state-authorized financing tool that enables the reimbursement of qualified public infrastructure costs through the incremental increases in property tax revenues that are generated by this new development. This program does not require upfront funding or financial obligation from the county. It does not divert existing tax revenue, and it is limited to reimbursing only what the development itself generates. At this time, the goal would be if the district's created and timelines are still in place, Adam Prey would like to see construction start by the same time next year. Currently, his RHID construction costs look like they'll be around $600,000. If you average about a $35,000 tax increment, then potentially you would see, instead of a 25-year process, that being paid off potentially around 18 years in that goal. When I go into just the positive economic impact and, working with Grow Hayes and Ellis County economic growth, I just wanted to point out just a family of 3 moving into one home, the average is around $30 impact to our local economy. That's through property and sales tax, spending on utilities, goods and services, support for local schools and infrastructure, vehicles, fuel purchases, and many more actually. So in total, the 13 homes could generate an estimated $325 to $455 annually in local economic activity. And over a 20-year period, that equals about $6.5 to $9 million just for 13 homes being added to our county. Today, all I'm asking is the adopting of this resolution. This does not create the RHID, it just starts the process. It helps advance the statutory process for RHID creation by formally declaring the designated Big Creek Estate property eligible. And when we say Big Creek Estates, we're not talking the whole area, we're just talking about the specific area that Adam would be building in for those 13 homes. This would not impact the other homes currently built in there. From here, the declaration allows the county to move forward with the next steps, including preparation of a housing needs analysis, which you already have a copy of that from our 2022 needs assessment. And even though that might sound like it's 3 years old, we have yet to meet any of those numbers that show just a 1% growth in this area. That has been a continuous struggle. So Adam continuing to build here in Hayes and Ellis County and in Victoria is definitely helping Ellis County in its growth. The declaration would also just, as it develops, gets with Gilmore and Bell. Gilmore Bell eventually would return it back to this county commission, and it will go up for public hearing, which is required under Kansas statutes. I'll stand for any questions you guys might have.
So at this time, this is just, identify the process to get it opened and started. This actually is no financial impact right now.
Correct.
The financial impact of an RHID, that's more or less deferred to all the tax-paying entities and not just those property owners until the developer's done. Is that how I see that?
Correct. Those 13 homes that would be built, the property owners in there, when they're paying their property tax, a portion of property tax actually will be reimbursed back toward expenses that Adam Prey had toward the home that fall under the Kansas statute for eligibility.
So instead of doing a specials assessment, this would more or less divert the tax burden across the entire county?
It diverts the tax burden just to those 13 homes toward the reimbursement of those expenses. When you look at the difference between an RHID and a special assessment, one special assessment actually adds a higher payment to the homeowner that buys that, so it could probably be around $150, $200 more a month in payment. And then since it's sitting outside of the city limits, there's other legalities that get into trying to get that with the entities to do a special assessment. The RHID in this case is actually an easier process, and it helps encourage builders such as Adam Prey to build outside of the city limits and continue adding homes to this county.
Okay.
Of that 600,000, what's going to your lift station? I mean, just an estimate.
300,000 approximately goes through the lift station alone. And that's a feat by itself, because without that, that property could not be developed as it need to be. And I can let Adam speak to this, Adam Prey here. But that was, getting that met and figuring that process out, I think was a good ordeal, just to be able to say, hey, we can build these homes here. Do you have anything more you want to add to that?
Adam Prey,
Morning. Al.
yeah, it's.
Morning.
I'm sorry.
Morning.
Thank you, good morning. And thank you for entertaining this. You had asked Nathan about specials versus an RHID. We've looked at this many different ways. I've looked at this. I have my viewpoint, so I'd be curious, you'd asked about specials versus an RHID. From your seat, what's the advantage of specials? Where are you coming from?
I guess from other taxpayers, just offsetting this, if somebody else or business, we'll take a small business owner wants to make an investment, they save up or they go borrow it to do it, and it's kind of a look that you're coming to the county to look at it differently, I guess. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying it's a different look. So, you know, we've seen specials develop a number of different areas in the cities. I don't know where that stands on the county side. We're just going through a process currently where it's a possibility, I guess, for improvements on roads.
Yeah.
But that's why I brought up the question.
Yeah, and I appreciate the question. I could tell you, you know, from my viewpoint, if you put a specials on, you may or may not know the average sales price in the city of Hayes is a little over 200,000. We get in trouble when we say affordable homes, because what's affordable to one may not be affordable to another. If you tack on an extra $150, $200 a month, that obviously is less affordable home. The price point of these homes are going to be somewhere in that $325 to $350 range, 3-bed, 2-bath, unfinished basement, double car garage. If you tack on an extra $200 a month in specials, maybe a little more than that. With the cost of lift station, this is not a doable project. Anybody would not do this project unless we have some sort of, whether it be RHID or some sort of subsidies, and I'm afraid that's where development's going today. You almost cannot develop today without any sort of subsidies, the cost of the development. So the RHID, the piece of ground that we get right now in taxes, it's $100 a year. I don't even know what we're paying. It's virtually minimal, so we're creating something that doesn't exist, and as the county, we're buying future income. So I do have families that want to move here. We don't have options for them. We've got one couple right now that came up from Houston, older couple, they're retired. They'd love to be here, looking for about a $350,000 home. They want newer. We've got a total of 67 homes on the market. Don't have an option for them. They've been looking for a year and a half. We just had a couple move here from Topeka. They've been looking for 4 years. We built a house out east of NCK Tech. That's what they ended up buying. Without that project, which was an RHID, by the way, I don't know, they've been here looking for 4 years. So we've got a lot of people that I do believe that want to live here. We don't have the options. And I don't know that the specials would work or not. You can still call it a $350,000 home. When you add $200 a month, you really have a $400,000 home. So I think you're going to price out a lot of the folks that would typically buy it. So from a buyer's standpoint, it hurts them. From my standpoint, specials, RHID, something's going to have to pay for that. Per lot, you're looking at almost $46,000 in hard costs per lot. That doesn't include the road, doesn't include a lot of the other expenses that are unforeseen. So my cost to build this is going to be more than what I can sell it for. We're selling lots out there for $35,000 each. So I'm losing $11,000 a lot that I wouldn't be in business very long at those numbers. So my opinion in RHID, I think, makes the most sense because we're creating something that wouldn't exist. We're bringing people in that probably wouldn't be here. We're giving options that we wouldn't have at a more affordable price for the buyer. So depends on how you look at it, you know, what are we trying to accomplish.
And my argument would be is we have other developments that are being developed currently without that. So it's.
Tell me more about that.
I'm just saying, we've got one out at Yosemite where we've got a private investor building and selling lots. Doing very similar, not the exact same, very similar. You know, it's different ways of getting business done. So.
I'm very familiar with the lot by Yosemite. My understanding, they haven't sold, well, they sold one lot was to a family member. There's another development that's here that no subsidies, and those lots are about $100,000 per lot. They haven't sold but 4 lots, again, to family members. I don't know that the numbers make sense. When you spend, they want $50,000 an acre, is my understanding on that development, $250,000 for a lot. You're gonna price yourselves out of homes pretty quick. So it may work, it may not. For me, if those developers develop more and more, then I would absolutely go that route. If it's a one and done because it didn't work, I think we're being the same boat we were in 4 years ago. We've been in the last 10 years. We're not gonna have enough homes to meet the demand. Because those developments, we got a lot of people want to move here, and they want to move here for a long period of time. That's not, again, the word affordables, I don't know what that means to anybody really, but I don't know that they're good options for a lot of people that we have looking.
So what you're saying, pretty much, if this goes through with the 13 houses, they're pretty much all gonna be spoken for, is what
I've
you're
got a
kind of telling
waiting
me, what I'm
list.
getting.
I have a waiting list in my office that's about 67 people deep. So we've got 105 lot development east of NCK Tech. Again, Doug and David are working on that. So once that development starts, we've never had a house that we've built that's built without being pre-sold. I would expect these to be pre-sold. And to clarify, Nathan, those people are aware of the Yosemite development. They're aware of the development out there off by the airport. It just doesn't work financially for those folks. So this would be just a different option. If that's the development you guys want, we got several of them. There's a lot of different options. There's another development in northwest Ellis County is going up. When you start putting pencil and paper to it, or numbers to what these things are really gonna cost, it's a load. It's gonna cost a lot. And I hope those developers break even.
I want to go back to the resolution itself. What the resolution right now is doing is to send in the housing study to the state, to Governor, or to Lieutenant Governor Tolan to review, to see if the need is there, which it probably will show that.
You'll
And
do
under
the
that
resolution.
resolution, then that will identify that area as an RHID eligible district.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, once the commission, if the commission signs the resolution, it goes back to Gilmore and Bill, where they verify, again, the housing assessment, which you already have a copy of, making sure everything qualifies as it should, then it proceeds up to Tolan, who then reviews to make sure it meets all the criteria as expected by Kansas state statute. If all that is verified, then it comes back to the county for a public hearing, just to get approval from the county after the public hearing. And by then, the RHID district would be in creation for those 13 spots where Adam wishes to build.
During that public hearing, when do you have to, we know that you're doing basically a lift station, but at this point, you don't have to necessarily say that's what it's for, do you? Is there a time later where you actually say, these are the projects that are eligible that we are going to use?
I have to put a cost. What is the approximate cost?
Okay.
So the lift station, you can't have houses there without a lift station. There's no other option. So we'd have to put a lift station. We have 3 options. You can put, each home has its own lift station into a sewer that's about 6 inches underneath the dirt that goes down. We could run in the ditch and have one big hole where it all goes into that and lifts up, or we can go up and put a lift station north in the alley of between Southview and Logan Drive. So those are our 3 options, but it's a lift station of some sort. The other thing I should mention, you guys may know Randy Speaker. Randy's with the Hanson Foundation. They heard about the project, they called, and they feel like Ellis County needs homes, so we did get awarded a grant contingent upon this RHID. And the first 4 homes will get $15,000 per home to encourage and it has to go to the buyer, so that they can use that to buy down interest rates, they can use that for closing costs, anything else, contingent upon this going through. So it's just one of the contingencies, I guess, to consider.
I guess with the generation of what it's gonna bring into Ellis County, Adam, you're in to the housing, big time in development. Do you see, because when I was campaigning, I seen quite a bit of elderly people, like you said, coming from Texas, coming in. Some of their children move with them here. So is that most of the time 2 houses being spoken for? Have you run into that?
We definitely have seen this. You probably don't want to hear this, Neil, but probably the most tragic story I have is I had a gal move here from Seattle, followed her kids here for a job, and we go to closing, which is usually a happy time, and she was crying because the kids moved again, so she didn't get to move in the house, she left. But yes, I do see family chasing family, so it's hard to compute how many will come, but yeah, that's pretty common.
Okay.
For sure, retirees chase kids, or vice versa. Kids will follow with retirees. We got one mom right now looking to move here, and she has 3 kids. 2 are grown. 1 is sophomore in high school, I think, and they're all 3 going to be moving here. So that potentially could be 3 homes. Yeah, it's a good point.
Okay.
I'm going to admit, guys, I'm not as probably knowledgeable as I need to be on the RHAD. I know we've approved others in the past and haven't stood up against any that we currently have on the books. I have no problem seeing this start advancing forward, but I'm not sure if after that public hearing I'll be able to support it. I will be doing more homework on it.
With that discussion, there is a motion there. Do I hear a motion?
I will move to approve Resolution 2025-08, which identifies the housing need in Ellis County, and to start the RHID process.
I'll second that. We had a motion and a second on the table. Any other questions or comments at this time with the motion?
No.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
With that, there's a letter in the agenda. I was going to ask that because I have the resolution here, but there's also a letter we need to sign, but I don't have that, I don't believe.
I think the county clerk kept a couple papers back for you to sign pending if the commission approves it.
Morning.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Grow Hayes update, Mr. Doug Williams. Thank you.
Good
for
morning,
letting me-
Commissioners.
Thank
Good
you
morning.
for letting me call you up.
Do what?
Thank you for letting me announce you first before just.
Everybody's in a hurry to get up here and talk to you guys today, I think. I'm Doug Williams, Executive Director of Grow Hayes. Good morning to the Commissioners, Councilor Jeter, Darren, and Bobby. It's always a pleasure to come before you and kind of give you an update. Since I was here in October, we've had a lot of things happening, as you can imagine, and I think as you see, as you move around the community. I couldn't have had a better lead-in with the DSNWK people as well, and Adam and David, as they talk about workforce and housing and the challenges that we have. If I see one thing across rural America that is the biggest challenge, it really boils down to workforce. While we have many problems in rural America, workforce is the consistent one you hear from one business to another, from one county to the next, and that kind of thing. So we have always adopted this hierarchy of needs to attract a workforce, and as you can see, housing is at the base. It all starts there. And so that's the position we take with economic development. We have lots of things we focus on, but housing is a key one, and that's why we're so focused on it, is primarily workforce related. When Jerry and people like that come in and say they're having problems finding a workforce, we hear that all the time. And so housing is extremely important. First, development I'd like to talk about a little bit. You're familiar with it. It was an RHID. And a couple of points of clarification to Nathan's question. One of the challenges with an RHID versus a benefit district where you have special assessments surround the eligible costs. It's my understanding that the eligible costs that are reimbursable in a special assessment district have to be public infrastructure. So it has to be a public street, it has to be a public sewer system, it has to be a public water system, it has to be public electricity and gas. In the case of Big Creek Estates, an example, I don't believe you're taking on those streets as county roads. I think most of the developments you're looking at are private streets. And the sewer system, Big Creek sewer system, is not a public sewer system. And the power and gas are supplied by Midwest Energy, so they are not public. So I'm not sure a benefit district in that particular case would work very well. But, so I wanted to clarify that. And to Commissioner Burgess's question, only identified eligible costs are reimbursable in an RHID. So up front, the developer identifies what those costs are. They're part of the resolution that is passed or the development agreement that is put together. And then those are the eligible costs that are reimbursed over the period of the RHID. So get that out of the way. Heart of America, we've done this, they've done this addition in phases. To date, there have been 3 phases. Phase 1 was 36 lots. Phase 2 was 18 lots. Phase 3 is 12 lots. All lots, all have sold out. I mean, any house that's been built out there, as Adam noted, has sold before it was done. Heart of America did limit the builders to a maximum sales price of $225,000 on the first 36, of $235,000 in the next 18, and then currently the ones that are under construction, currently being finished up or getting started on the 12 on Wheatland Drive. Because they're bigger lots, they allowed for some bigger homes, and so $325,000 was the maximum sales price on those homes. They've all sold before they were done. The builders, like Adam noted, they have waiting lists for people who want homes out there, and demand remains high. Little bit of demographics for that development. We've kept track of who's buying them. First-time home buyers are the largest group. 28 have sold to first-time home buyers. That's important when you talk about a workforce, because when people buy a home, they put down roots and they're more likely to stay. And so we like to see first-time home buyers here because they're more likely to stay here. 17 new to Hayes, that's what you guys were talking about, somebody moving from Houston or wherever. Sometimes kids chase parents, sometimes parents chase grandkids and kids. You know, we see both in this market. We've seen 9 upsize or downsize. They've either people who own an existing home move up, or people who own a larger home and are ready to move down have moved down. We have some of both. In all those cases, that means 9 additional homes in Hayes came on the market and were available to people who were looking for homes. So again, generating more housing activity. 6 sold to investors. That's the 60 to date. There are 6 more that are going to be started construction. We were originally planning, I was told by the builder they were going to start in February, and then March, and in April, and in May. I'm hoping June. He's got to get his foundation guy up here to dig some foundations. They're all sold. So the owners of those, the buyers are very eager to get into those. But as with all things these days, it's hard to get things done on the time frame that you were hoping. As you can see in the lower area, the first 3 phases, the upper area is what we're calling phase 4. That's a development that, an expansion, 101 lots. They're currently platted. If you can roll the next one, Darren. That's the plat of it. It runs from the north end of the existing development all the way to the interstate. 101 lots. The engineering and that type of thing is underway, supposed to be done in the next 30 days or so. We'll put the infrastructure out for bid and then start, hopefully, construction of sewer, water, streets, curb and gutter sometime in the fall. 101 lots is a lot of lots, and I get asked all the time, isn't that too many? You know, are we overbuilding and that kind of thing? I think when you look at the success that the first 3 phases have had, we've always been running behind. We haven't been able to get ahead of this. And I think this is going to give us the opportunity to get ahead of it a little bit. We've got builders who are committing to build it out in a 5 to 6 year time frame, Adam being one of them. We think that we're going to get out ahead of it, and it'll be even more impactful than the first three additions were, or the first three phases. Okay. Any questions on the Heart of America development? You actually have a RHID in front of you now. We're in the veto period. The way an RHID works is it's approved by, in the case of Big Creek Estates, it's approved by you all. Then once the public hearing is held, there's a 30-day window that in your case, the school district would have the opportunity to veto. In the case of the Tallgrass addition, you and USD 489 both have an opportunity to veto it due to the fact that you're both in the taxing district includes all three of you in that particular case. We certainly hope you won't, but that's your right to do so.
Since, with these 100-plus lots, are they one size fits all, or do we, if we have that many people on the waiting list, do they get to customize their houses, some of them?
Most of these will not be customized type
Okay.
homes. Most of these will be what we would normally refer to as specs, even though the challenge is when they sell before they're done, it always becomes somewhat of a custom because people want their input into it. But they won't be, I'm going to go get a builder and I'm going to build the house I want. There may be some that somebody buys a lot and builds it themselves. I mean, we'll just have to see how that plays out. We haven't been able to price them yet because we don't know exactly what our costs are going to be.
Does that also include the, on the other part, on the phase 3 or 2 in there with the higher end, with the 325s, they still don't get to customize their own homes?
They have, I think the builder gives them 4 options.
Okay.
They can choose the outside color, they can choose the color of the flooring, maybe a cabinet door style, and one other, but not many.
Okay. Has that question been asked?
Oh, all the
from
time.
some? Okay.
Yeah. And
Will
the
that bring-
builders are pretty adamant. Once you go down the path of a custom home, the world changes completely.
Right.
You know, I want this wall moved over a foot here, and I want, these guys are trying to build at scale. They're trying to build quickly as they can and at volume, and so customization can really throw a wrinkle in that.
Okay. I didn't know if that would bring more people in, if they, but it's the cost it'll be associated with it.
Yeah, I think this is not necessarily geared to that.
Okay.
The next one I'm going to talk about might be a little more geared to that in some ways.
Okay.
Any other questions on Tallgrass? Next one I'd like to talk about is the Grove. I think we're all familiar with the Grove. It's the addition north of Hayes Medical Center. 108 total homes. It includes, if you want to go ahead, Darren, to the next one. There's a shot of it as it existed, and I believe that was on May 22nd. Looks different now. They've got that might have been before that. They've got that road running north and south is finished. The infrastructure is supposed to be done by the end of this month. And construction on homes is scheduled to begin probably August or September. We've got strong interest in it. As I noted, it's 108 home, $50 million development when you add everything up with it. There'll be patio homes, duplexes and townhouses, and what we're calling villas. Okay. The villas is kind of a new twist. These will be smaller homes, about 1,100 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. They'll face inward towards each other, so creating a courtyard between the houses. All the garages will be accessed off of the alleys. There'll be improved alleys with paved alleys with all access from there. We believe that this gives us that niche from the very entry level, say a single person, widow or widower, or just a single, all the way up to, in the Grove proper, we've got 2,000, 2,100 square feet, so we've got a broad range of housing, retiree focused, but not retiree exclusive. That's a little bit of a floor plan for one of the houses, the villas. As you're very much aware, and we appreciate your support, the Bob and Pat Schmidt Community Center is well underway, supposed to be done sometime in July. This is a 14,000 square foot facility. It'll be the new home for the Hayes Senior Center and the Bright Minds Academy. Also, we'll have a series of, a number of community rooms available for the community at large to use for whatever type of event they want to do, gathering or whatnot. Some of the people in the development can use it if they have, if they've downsized and need more space when family comes to town. There's a number of areas that can be used for that. So very exciting. I want you to mark down August 29th. That is our ribbon cutting, and we would absolutely want you guys to be there. It should be, it's going to be a special place.
Before we get too far, did you say on the Aspen, the 2-bed, 2-bath, what the price was going to range on that?
Not 100% sure, but I'm thinking somewhere around 275.
Okay.
And when you talk about the Grove, there are going to be a lot more customizations inside. So if somebody wants to put in a $25,000 refrigerator and a $15,000, Sub-Zero range or whatever, that's fine.
Okay.
All the exteriors are going to be the same. Same material, same windows, same doors, same paint. Everything's going to be the same. It's obviously a maintenance-free community where we'll have a homeowners association. They'll pay their dues, and for that, lawn care, landscaping, snow removal, exterior maintenance. When they need to be painted, they'll be painted. So everything will be covered, basically maintenance-free living.
Are you that far along that you know what that cost may be?
We are not.
Okay.
You know what some of the costs will be? One of the challenges is insurance.
Yeah.
It gets a little complicated when the homeowners association is insuring from the walls out, and the homeowner is insuring from the walls in. So we're discussing that with multiple insurance carriers just to make sure we get it right. But I don't know what that's going to be.
Okay, and then north of the community center, when do you take ownership of that? Here soon?
We have ownership of it. We bought it about a year ago. Mrs. McGinnis unfortunately passed away here in early April. They have indicated to us that they will be done with the property by the end of July. So we will take possession of that. We will see if we're going to try and tear down the house or if we're going to try and get it moved off. We don't know. It's all brick, so to move it, you've got to strip all the brick off. It may not be practical to move it, but if somebody wants it, we would certainly entertain that, assuming they could get it out of there in a time frame that works for us. Any other questions on the Grove or the community center?
Thank you.
Got that date written down?
I do.
Okay. The micro factory. Probably didn't hear my discussion on last Friday on the radio, but we talked about the micro factory. We've got a deal where they send in questions and ask, and they ask for an update on it. To give you an update, we currently are negotiating with 3 tenants, leases with 3 different tenants. 2 of them we believe will bear fruit. One of them we are questioning. You never know who's going to come across the radar, but we're pretty confident with 2 of them that before July 1st, we'll have leases with those guys. We had hoped it would go faster. It is what it is. I think it does reflect a little bit of the challenge we have in Ellis County with the manufacturing sector. When you build a facility like this and you offer it at what conceivably could be, for the right situation, free rent, and you still can't get a lot of takers, and you advertise it nationwide, which we have done and spent tens of thousands of dollars advertising it, it tells me that we have a real need to build a facility like this, but it's going to take a lot of time. And so, again, back to that workforce, when you're short on workforce, the likelihood that we can go out and recruit somebody that's going to employ 300 or 400 people is pretty slim. They're going to look at our market and say, we don't feel comfortable that we have the workforce. So it's going to be things like this, where somebody starts small and grows. I use Dan Hess as my example. In 1989, I think that was the year Dan was driving around in a truck by himself doing what he does and whatnot. And now you look at them today, they employ 300 people and they've got a gazillion square feet of space out there. But he had to start someplace, and that's what we're looking for here. And we're hopeful that of these 2 people, we've got at least one of them will be a kind of along those lines. And just to remind you what the concept is for the micro factory, it's somebody moves in for whatever period of time makes sense. But they graduate out, they outgrow their space, and they need their own, and we build them their own, and then the next guy moves in. So this is an annuity of sorts that just continues to rotate through tenants over time and serves as this incubator for manufacturing. Questions?
So the 3 or 2 tenants, what kind of footage are they taking out of this building? Is it
One of
pretty-
them wants initially 5,000 with the opportunity to go up to 10,000 after a year. The other one wants 2,500. So about a third of the building, roughly. Leaves us about 2/3 to still find other tenants for, and maybe the third tenant, but we'll see.
Okay.
Talk a little bit about the retail project we're working on. We purchased via a grant we got from the state, the 9.1 acres directly north of Home Depot. We have engaged a broker to assist us with soliciting occupants, retailers who would be interested in locating there. We have at least 5 who want to be there and have indicated a strong interest. These are national big box retailers. The challenge is what they can afford to pay and what it costs to build it are a little bit out of sync. And so that's where, when we get to that point, we're going to be looking to you and the city for some creative ideas on how we can make this work, because it's important. You know, all 3 of the taxing entities, the school district, you all, and the city, levy sales tax in Ellis County or in Hayes. So these groups would do somewhere between $17 and $20 million a year in annual sales. So you plug that into the percentage you get, the city gets, the school district gets. It's important. If we can do this the way we hope to, these people would be paying property tax right away. So that would be significant on what I would guess, I don't know what Eugene would come up with, but I would guess a assessed valuation of $4 or $5 million on a project like this. So plug that into your mills, and it's a significant amount of money for the county and the city and the school district. So we're very motivated to get something going. This is obviously retail provides some employment, maybe not the highest paying jobs, but it does provide employment, secondary incomes lots of times. There is the sales tax factor, there is the property tax factor, and it's a significant quality of life opportunity for us. I think when we start talking about trying to recruit people and why people stay, shopping is important. You know, when a physician or a healthcare provider looks at relocating to our community, shopping is important to them. And so we need better options as it relates to shopping, particularly given that we're a regional trade center. And people come here to shop, and we want them to come here to shop, because when they're here, they may buy other things, they may do other things, they may buy cars, their kids may go to school here, to Fort Hays State or whatever. And so we're very motivated to get this retail project going.
So when you say shopping, do you guys do like say in Ellis County or all surrounding counties of what people would be interested in? Or is it just kind of somebody, hey, I'm interested?
Well, there are a group of retailers that locate in markets like ours across the country. And so they're pretty easy to identify. You know, you just look at communities like ours, and there they are in most cases. You take Pittsburgh as an example. Pittsburgh has a lot of similarities to Hayes. And there's a project down there where the developer who we actually bought this land from, built a Home Depot. Right next door to it, he's built a Marshall's. Next door to that, he's building a PetSmart, a Rack Room, Five Below. They tend to follow each other. Ulta Beauty, these retailers stick together. So the retailers are the ones who determine if it's a market for them.
Okay.
And we look for those who have identified these type of markets and think they want to be here. Any other questions on retail? Last thing I want to talk about is entrepreneurship. As you may know, we're an e-community. We work with Network Kansas on e-community loans and entrepreneurship activities. We host the Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge every year where high school kids come into a competition. They have business ideas, they make presentations. We offer cash prizes to these kids. If they win here, they have an opportunity to go on to the state Kansas Entrepreneurship Challenge. It's held every year in Manhattan, and win some cash prizes there. The first year we did this, Ethan Lang was our winner locally. He went on to win the state competition as well, so we really kicked off this program really well, and Ethan has now started a business here in Hayes and is doing really well, so a great graduate of this Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge. To date, we've made 60 loans totaling, what's that say, $2.3 million. About 40 of those are currently active. We made loans in Hayes, Ellis, Victoria, all communities in Ellis County we have made loans in, and it continues to be a great program. This shows the number of loans we have made by year. You see that spike? That's when James Robin came on, and he's been very active with that. I'm blessed to have James Robin and David as people in our organization that make me look good, or at least, and that's not easy to do, I guarantee you, but they do a great job. We're very fortunate to have them. Of course, Ernie does as well. So, questions? I've been up here a long time. I don't want to take up all your morning, but I do appreciate you taking the time to let me babble for a while.
I don't have any questions. Very active as always. I appreciate the update. And
Talked a lot about the retail and those sort of sectors. Any progress on looking at bringing in other manufacturing jobs other than the microfactory, or looking to recruit any businesses?
You know, we've worked with Hess Services a little bit. They purchased another company, and they're bringing that to our area. The exact specifics as to what that's going to mean in terms of jobs and what they're going to need to do in terms of space. They don't know if they can absorb it into what they have or not. We always are working with the state of Kansas on these bigger projects. They send out this list of people looking to relocate, and this is nationwide. And they have these nefarious names of these projects, you know, Project Windmill or something like that. And they talk about those. We respond to those that make sense. You know, sometimes they're looking for 500,000 square feet of refrigerated space, and they want it in the next 120 days. We can't respond to that. I mean, they're just not a fit. But we have talked to a windmill recycling company that has some interest in locating here. They recycle windmill blades, and we've had some conversations with them. So it's always ongoing, but nothing, Nathan, that I can say this is a really hot one.
Okay.
I do want to thank Dave for being the broker for all that, so.
For sure. Well, if there's nothing else, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Assistant County Attorney and Training Job Description, Mr. Aaron Cunningham.
Approach.
Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Good morning.
So what I'm here asking for today, in essence, is to kind of address a gap that exists currently within the way our office is structured. So as you may or may not be aware, upon graduating law school, you do have a Juris Doctorate degree. However, depending on when the time of year you graduate law school, it could be several months, sometimes up to 6 months, until a person could sit for the bar exam. And then after that, wait a couple more months before they're officially licensed as a fully practicing attorney. Presently, and as long as I've been a part of the Ellis County Attorney's Office, there hasn't really been a job description for someone who isn't a fully licensed attorney, but has that Juris Doctorate degree. And so what this position is envisioned to be is kind of that gap filler. It's actually advantageous for my budget to do it that way. Obviously, without the full licensure, I don't have to pay them the full amount of an assistant county attorney, but I can have them on salary with benefits as they await to take the bar and be a fully licensed attorney. The good news is the Kansas Supreme Court rules allow for us to take someone with a Juris Doctorate degree who's awaiting to take the bar exam, and under a Supreme Court rule, they can practice law under direct supervision of an attorney, and I say direct, actually it's just supervision of the attorney. So in essence, what this individual could do, and as is laid out in the job description, is what I would estimate to be about 80% of the work that an attorney would need to do in my office. That remaining 20% would really be the perfunctory role of my signature being attached to the pleadings. Because they're not a licensed attorney, they can't put their bar number behind any of the pleadings. But as far as attending hearings, making arguments, drafting briefs, all of that type of thing, plea negotiations, they could handle that. But I would just have to have the final signature on anything that they do, or another attorney in my office would. So really, the job description is identical to that of the assistant county attorney position. I did remove a few things. I did not want this individual involved with child in need of care or care and treatment cases because of the sensitive nature of those and some of the specialized knowledge you would need regarding hard timelines. But beyond it, it should be largely identical to the assistant county attorney position. Obviously, it's scored out lower than that because, again, they're only about 80% as helpful. This isn't something that I would envision having someone hired on indefinitely. Again, this is a stepping stone to you're fully licensed. If there should be an issue where someone's licensure doesn't go through because they either fail the bar exam or something else comes up, obviously we would then terminate that position. This is just a temporary holding thing to address a gap between they're more than an intern and they do deserve compensation, but they're not a fully licensed attorney.
How many attorneys do you have currently on staff?
So currently, I have Brenda Baskell and Josh Becker, and then myself, so a total of 3.
Okay.
You answered the question I was gonna kind of ask is this a role that's essentially always open, but it doesn't really sound like it.
No.
You're hiring for an attorney, but.
Right, this would be if we're courting an attorney to come work for us, but because they're either transferring from out of state, the obnoxious thing about the legal profession is the bar is only offered 2 times a year, in July and in February. And if you don't hit it just right with the application window, you might be stuck waiting about 8 months before you can be fully licensed. And that's a situation we may find ourselves in, and I think it'd be advantageous for us to have this as an option if there's an individual that's really proven themselves that would fit well with the office, but they just can't get that formal licensure until several months later.
Makes perfect sense. I mean,
Can the bar be retaken? So in the case of somebody taking it, not passing it, does that give you or the county attorney the option to maintain this person in the position to retake it? Or does the job description say,
Yeah,
if you don't pass, you're.
That's a good question. So the bar can be retaken. The issue, though, it's my understanding, and I've not personally experienced this, but it's my understanding is you can only have that Kansas Supreme Court temporary practice permit if you are awaiting taking the bar or bar results. However, once bar results come out, obviously if you pass, you're fully licensed, no big deal. But my understanding is they will revoke that temporary permit. I'm not clear on whether or not someone could reapply to get it and state it again while they wait to take the next bar. I don't know the answer to that question. Personally, though, that's not something I would be interested in. If that person can't get the bar passed, then I think my attitude with how competitive our salary is statewide, I would rather just look for another applicant at that juncture.
Well, I'll move to approve the attached assistant county attorney in training job description.
I'll second that.
Okay, you got a motion and a second. Any further questions for Aaron or discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, passes 3-0.
Okay.
Thank you,
Aaron.
Commissioner.
Thank you.
Appraiser appointment, resolution 2025-9. Aaron or Darren and Eugene's out there, so we'll
Darren Myers, County Administrator. Your next item on agenda is to have the consideration of the reappointment of your county appraiser. This is done by state statute, which was established more than 25 years ago, that the appraisers are reappointed by the commission every 4 years. And as of the end of this month, Eugene's appraisal period of his initial appointment, which finished the term of Lisa Ree, is up. So this would be Eugene's first full 4-year appointment if the commission were to approve that. So you all know Eugene very well, and he's here on the hands and knees begging. Not quite. He's done a great job.
Now I think back.
Yes, so basically, I just, the appraiser resolution is just a reappointment to a 4-year term, beginning July 1st, every 4 years.
Okay. I have no questions.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. I move to approve Resolution 2028-09 to appoint Eugene Rupp as the county appraiser effective July 1st, 2025.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any other comments?
All right, thank you for the
You make it easy.
opportunity to continue serving.
That worked well.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, passes 3-0.
Thanks, Eugene.
Thank you.
Discharge fireworks in unincorporated areas of Ellis County. Aaron?
Next item on the agenda is for the commission to consider the lifting of the ban of discharging fireworks during a certain time period each year set by a previous resolution back in 2018 that established this process. Each year, the commission has the opportunity to make a decision if you want to allow the discharge of fireworks throughout the county. These dates are set by the county commission, and we usually try to, or I usually make the recommendation that we try to abide by the same dates and times that the city of Hayes does, just for the enforcement timepiece, and then that way we also don't have a whole nother time period of when the days that they can be discharged, or the time periods, starting at 8 instead of 6, or et cetera, just to create the easier enforcement period for everybody to know. However, Ellis and Victoria have always had separate days and times than the city of Hayes. But since City of Hayes is the largest population and the most probable chance of having fireworks discharged the most in the county, that's just been the suggestion that I've made every year. And we're sitting here this morning asking for your consideration to approve those dates of July 2nd through the 4th from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. When I'd written this, the city commission were still in consideration of, they did a survey to the public and had the opportunity to change their ordinance of when those dates would be allowed. And to my understanding and speaking to the Hayes Fire Chief, that they are not intending to make any changes this year at this point.
Ellis, I do know they passed theirs. They're just doing the 3rd and the 4th, not the 2nd.
I think Victoria is usually just one day, if I remember right. It's only July 4th.
Okay. Well, at this time, I'd like to also mention that we've all received correspondence over the discharge of fireworks. And I'd like the public to know that we have received it, and we do take into account their regards. So we do appreciate getting that, and we're gonna limit it to these days in accordance with the city, but we do receive that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. At this time, we're not gonna make any change. I don't perceive making any changes.
No, I'm good with it, as long as it stays wet.
Yeah, I don't have any.
That's gonna be that's scary, but I move to allow the discharge of fireworks in the unincorporated areas of Ellis County on July 2nd, 3rd, 4th, during the hours of 10 a.m. to 11 p.m.
I will second that.
Okay. You got a motion and a second on the discharge of fireworks. Any other discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, passes 3-0.
We do encourage safe, responsible discharging of those. So that way there's no. mind your own property, I
Mhm.
guess.
Commission appointments, planning and zoning, and the library board.
We added this commission agenda item just for more of the announcement, hopefully that it gets a little bit of press and some information out to those who may be interested. We have two positions on two different boards that the commission appoint each year, and some of the terms last up to 3 years or 4 years, depending on the position. But the planning and zoning board has somebody that has moved out of town, and they will be looking for a reappointment. And the library board, which is just established at the later part of 2024, one of the individuals on that board is moving out of town to go to school, to college. So that position will be open come August. So this is kind of just a announcement to get the word out. If anybody's interested on serving on that planning and zoning board or the library board, would be to contact the commissioners, myself, the library board president, Benjamin Domi, the planning zone coordinator, Justin Craig, out of Environmental Services, to start that conversation. And if they are interested, the website link is on here, but it's on the county clerk's website, the citizen interest form to fill out and get that sent in so we can pass that along back to the commission for consideration.
Okay.
Yeah, on the planning and zoning, so the Ellis Library Board member has to be in the unincorporated, or the, non-city limits of
Anywhere
Hayes.
outside the Ellis and Hayes.
Right.
Yep.
Or Ellis or Hayes. So the planning and zone, where can that board member reside?
I
Anywhere?
believe that's anywhere. Justin was here. They do not, there's no limitation
Okay.
on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Justin, currently, we have a number of members kind of spread evenly throughout the county. Any indication where this member was from?
Brett Schmidt.
Okay. So-
Just so Bobby can have that in the notes since it wasn't in there. And Brett Schmidt was what Justin said, so that way, those that can't hear.
All right. First draft of the 2026 budget.
Well, moving on to the final agenda item here is to start looking at the 2026 budget. There's a lot of numbers in here. I won't necessarily go in depth with any of them because your eyes will get glazed over fairly quickly. However, the first draft of the budget has been submitted and has been put together and is in your packet today. Total amount of general revenues is just over $30.4 million, which is an increase of just over $640,000 from last year's. And the expenditure lines total $33.3 million, which is an increase of just over $661,000 for the entire county general fund budget. At this point, the county appraiser has certified his valuations over to the clerk, and she has until approximately June 15th to get all those put together. And then once that process comes, she will distribute all those assessed valuations estimates to all the taxing entities, and then we'll be able to narrow in our overall general budget mill levy amounts and estimated mill levies as we progress through this. As I stated at your last meeting, we do have the county audit completed, and I've inputted all those into the state budget forms already. And at right now, with this budget, the way it sits, if no changes were made over the process, we are just over the mill levy point with the very early estimate of the total assessed valuation for Ellis County. So if the commission is and the commission hasn't intended this, but if we were to look at the R&R rate, the revenue neutral rate, we are exceeding that. If this budget today, like I say, is to be approved, and you look at the mill levy, Bobby and I looked at it, it was 0.1 of a mill within our current mill levy, so we are very close in the overall aspect of the mill levy in comparison to what we're currently sitting at now. The end-of-year unencumbered cash rollover from last year to this year has increased from 4.3 to 4.8 million, so that is always better. The more we end on a positive note at the end of the year, that means there's more unencumbered cash, which means that's less of the valuation or the ad valorem property tax that needs to be collected. So that is a positive note there. I will note that our mill levy is the 13th mill levy in the entire state of Kansas, which is a very good thing for the county to hang its hat on. That means there's 92 other counties that have higher mill levy rates than Ellis County. Doesn't necessarily mean they pay more taxes, but there are several studies out there that show that valuations in Hays are in par with valuations through most of our competing counties. Your budget that you see here today does include a 7% cost of insurance premiums for healthcare, which that does account for about, Commissioner Burgess and I looked over a lot of this very in depth on Saturday morning, but that does account for several $100,000 in increases there, which could change, but we do not know what those rates will be until we apply for early renewal numbers, which won't happen until September of 2025 here, which is after your budget will be adopted. So it does try to include that, or it does include those numbers in there. This budget does also include the policy for the compensation policy that employees will be given a step increase come January 2026, as well as a separate line item for a possible COLA for future approval in mid-year 2026 as well. Some of the key items to consider as we move through the budget: it does continue to fund the Public Works Department's highway fund at a $1.6 million transfer for the year. It does have 100% support for the dollars amount needed for the asphalt maintenance plan, which was approved just 2-3 years ago. So continued improvement to the asphalt road system. There is staff development funds in there for the continuation of the certified public manager for our managers in Ellis County. And we did finally get word that Ellis County and the City of Hays will be hosting a cohort of that class here in Ellis County next year. And it looks like we should have, at least this point, between city staff and county staff, about a dozen or more employees just here locally in that class. So that's excellent news, and very thankful for the City of Hays working with us to get that locally here again, as well as KU Public Management Center. This budget does continue to have the transfer to reserves for all departments to fund their capital equipment future expenses in future years. And this does absorb the complete 100% rates of pay for the communications department that the commission assigned as a program between the road maintenance and the PD moving out of the facility of law enforcement center. This does put final 100% burden on the county for those 14 new employees with the communications or the 911 center. What is not in your budget that has been considered, some of these items we did talk about at the commission retreat, just as future consideration points, is the law enforcement center does need to be remodeled after the Hays PD moves out to do some slight changes there. And we'll have some future conversations about that. I've done some preliminary work with the bonding agency to get to some financial numbers to consider later in this budget cycle for consideration. There is going to be a request from the contract attorneys that work with the 23rd Judicial Court. These are the contract attorneys that take cases for the courts for several different reasons. They have contacted me, and they will be coming at a future, I will be meeting with them, but they'll end up coming to the commission for a request for increase in their salary, their contractual salary amounts. We do have a project within the 911 center of essentially, in simple terms, moving from a hardware-based system to a cloud-based system, which encompasses a lot of work in regards to replacing equipment to go to the cloud, but it also impacts the City of Hays, Ellis, Victoria, and Fort Hays State, and the maintenance funding, how that is all shifting. And our communications director has been in contact with all of them, so they are also planning and considering that increase as well. That is not in this budget, but it is something that he will consider, discuss with the commission at the budget hearings here in July. Consideration of outside agencies, you heard from several of them today. You will hear the balance of those next week. There are many of them that are requesting more funds. in the tune of several $100,000. So that is something that the commission is not in your budget. The numbers are the same in this budget as they are for this year. So anything above what they asked is not in what you see today. We were having a discussion with the retirement and public works that we're possibly going to restructure them a little bit and make some changes on their day-to-day operations. So that will be a future commission agenda item with some changes there if the commission wants to consider that. And then it's been a multi-year discussion from the sheriff's office to their request for their employees to change from an 8-hour to a 12-hour shift. And then our EMS director has been requesting for several years to add one person per shift to restructure the way they operate. And that's one of her certified public managers, her CPM project for this year. So she's working through that process to present that to the commission here into the future as well. A couple final different things. Let's see here. We talked about the renovation, the outside agencies. If you do remember, we did hear from 3 of them today. We'll hear from about 5 next week, but the remainder that we usually saw each year of about 18 more agencies, they all have submitted their budget request to the Care Council. So the Care Council will be working to get a date set in the coming weeks to give you their funding amounts for how they split up the 3/10 allocation that the commission has put together. So that will be coming forth here in the near future as well, hopefully before the end of July. In regards to the fire district, the biggest increase there, most of the changes were absorbed, but the biggest increase was from the price of the insurance that has increased over the year, newer equipment, but also having to insure multiple of the same. We have fire engines in service, but we have fire engines being built, so we have to insure both of them. So there's a temporary increase in the amount of coverage that is required there. And then for the solid waste, you see that that's still essentially a balanced budget moving into 2026, taking into account several different factors from a renewed contract that will be coming into place for the hauling of trash. The commission will be considering a TARP load policy fee in the coming weeks with the Environmental Services Director. But at this point, he does not plan any rate increases for municipal waste at this point. So apologize if I went too quick. There's a lot of information. This is very preliminary, but the good news is the budget came in at a point where it's not as concerning as originally thought. But if you are wanting to, 2 key takeaways. If you're wanting to get to the R&R rate, you're probably going to have to cut about $750,000 out of the budget, which is fairly significant. If you're wanting to stay within the mill levy rate, you're going to have to, with no changes that we talked about, probably going to have to cut a couple $100,000. So those are considerations that we'll work through over the next couple months. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Do we have we have another ambulance scheduled for delivery. Do we have to have that insured as well?
I do not believe so. Anita must have left. I do not believe so.
Sorry to drop that on you.
Is she out there? Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
I do not believe it needs to be insured based on the fire trucks need to be because there is the loan taken out, the money market account with Commerce Bank, and we take ownership. We had to pay for the chassis upon delivery. So that's a big difference between she hasn't taken possession, we have. It's just we don't have them in our possession, they're at the manufacturer.
Okay. Sorry to drop that in for your question.
I guess I'm stuck on the GPS thing. Instead of digging through all these records, if we can start moving forward on that also. I know it's associated with the cost, but you know, that gives our community and our Ellis County people, they all have access to the city/county portal. They can look what we're doing, when we've done it. It'll make a nice tool for everybody to see. So
I didn't
Okay.
get too far in detail, but within the restructure of the Public Works Department, which will be
Mhm.
coming at a future consideration for the commission, that is part of the plan. The
Okay.
GPS, not a position, but a project manager position that could potentially manage a informatic system for Public Works to track road maintenance, to track culverts, track signs, track what road is being done throughout the year, so that way we're not looking at a printed maps with, I know the public can't see this, but printed maps with highlighter marks on it. It'll all be put into a system that, yes, possibly could be shared to the public at a future date. That's going to be a
Bridges.
multi-year plan,
Yeah.
but it's a start.
Bridges, culverts, I mean, how simple that will be to do that if we can get that accomplished, so. Yeah, that's all I have.
My comments for the initial draft here. First, I want to thank all the department heads that put their budgets together and really, I think, probably sharpened their pencils already under our request to try to maintain the budget as even as possible, so that way we can start where we are and have a good picture of what it may take to increase, whether that's revenue neutral or whether that's a mill change. I think the department heads did a really good job getting the initial draft budget to us by maintaining close to what we have done in the past. I think this is going to be our toughest budget out of the three that I've been through for various reasons. One, because as we heard today, there's cuts across other sources, federal or state, that are impacting organizations that we help and fund. I have some concerns about, and Darren and I met Friday for several hours. I have concerns with my own as far as the economic outlook, and that can entail property taxes, that can entail sales tax, it can entail federal dollars that we may or may not get in the future. So I think this is going to be very, very difficult to make some decisions over the next things, but I appreciate where we have to start here today with a clear picture of where we're at. So those are my comments.
I'll agree. I appreciate all the department heads, and at this time, I have no further comments.
Well, that was easy.
The department heads do a good job all the time. I have to say, I have to brag on them, and our employees also, so, yeah.
The hard part's yet to come.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's the end of the agenda. County Administrator report.
I have nothing this morning. Thank you.
Nathan?
Yeah, I met with, had a couple calls last week, sent me down a few rabbit holes for the county, but I appreciate the clerk getting me some information this past week, and I'll be bringing that to you gentlemen as well. And I did have a really good meeting with Doug and Dave with Grow Hayes over some concerns and possible directions going forward. So I thought we had a really good conversation and could see some things come out of that. That's all I have.
Neil?
Okay, I did attend one of the Hayes City meetings, and then also earlier I said with the SNWK with the new custom creations, I was not even aware that we had that down on Main Street. Was in there and with Jerry, and he appreciated me coming, and what a neat deal, and how they can take some of these of their clients and put them to work, and they get a percentage of that. And he said that is just a happy smiling face like no tomorrow. So I appreciated that. Also, I did go to the Hayes Chamber luncheons, and I know all three of us had the discussion when these young ladies were in here one day. We were all asking, who are they? Well, I got to see them again on the luncheon along with Mr. Dave Klingon. They completed the leadership class. So that is one of the requirements, that they go to a city and a county. So I got that question answered. Also, I was with Brandon yesterday for a couple hours. Took a couple little trips out in the country, and One of them was up north of Hayes, and we'll discuss that later, but, and then also remember, and I wish it was July instead of June for being, June is the month of safety, so everybody in your everyday be safe, and same with July, like Commissioner Liker said, with the 4th of July coming up, everybody be cautious and be careful. So that's what I have.
For me, earlier in the year, I was nominated to be appointed to the K-Camp Board of Kansas County's multi-line insurance pool. And on Thursday, I attended their board meeting in Topeka and was officially appointed to the K-Camp Board. So I'll be serving that board. Looking forward to it. As with anything in insurance and numbers, it's there's a lot to it. I'm trying to get on, but I'm excited to serve on that board. I want to thank Ed Harbin for making the nomination to me. To serve that for the, not just for Ellis County, but the other, there's 95 counties, I believe, that K-Camp represents on insurance. So I appreciate that nomination and now being able to serve on it. I want to congratulate the Ellis High School girls team that won state 1A girls title. I think that's the first title they've won, so congratulations to them. And then when I came in this morning, I got an envelope here from Roosevelt Elementary. We had Roosevelt Elementary, a couple of the teachers came earlier this year and talked about Ameritown, and I participated in some interviews with them. And I very much appreciate the handwritten letters from the 5th graders recognizing my time for coming in and interviewing. So thank you. With that, we have a couple executive orders.
I do. I move to the Board of County Commissioners recess to an executive session for 15 minutes under the following exception to the Kansas Open Meeting Act pursuant to attorney-client privilege exception, potential litigation, those attending, all 3 commissioners, Mr. Bill Jeter, Mr. Brendan McKay, and Mr. Darren Myers. And we will be back at 10:35.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to go to executive order. Any comments, orders? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, pass 3-0.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Did you want to say 10?
executive session at 10:36. No decisions were made. We got another one we're going to go into.
Okay. I move to the Board of County Commissioners recess to an executive session for 45 minutes under the following exception of the Kansas Open Meeting Act pursuant to the non-elected personnel matter exception. The subject to be discussed is personal matter. Those in attendance are the 3 county commissioners, Mr. Bill Jeter, Brandon McKay, Mr. Darren Myers, and Mrs. Jennifer Taylor.
Okay, second. What time?
You're trying to do some math.
No
here.
kidding, yeah. 20?
Yeah, so 10:25?
10, yeah.
Or, I'm
Oh,
sorry, 11:25.
11:25, yep.
Okay. Got a motion second on executive session. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, pass 3-0. Do a quick signature on that one and. the legality. Can we close it without her? I don't really
No,
know.
we can, we just have to
Okay.
mark it down what time we adjourn.
What time? Yeah.
So we resumed at 11:26.
Yes. Came out of executive session at 11:26, no decisions were made, and we'll adjourn the June 3rd commission meeting at 11:26.